We are going to be looking at our talk arc this week, and we're going to be doing some storyboarding this week as well. So I'm going to talk you through both of those activities in this video. You may want to grab some sticky notes and maybe some blank paper. You could even use your writer's notebook for some of your getting some of your thoughts down on paper. I'm going to use this sketchbook because it's been like my best friend during this whole remote learning experience. So grab those things and we'll get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a talk arc, and I want you to visualize your talk as having this shape. Okay, we're going to operate from this understanding going forward. So when I refer to a talk arc, I want you to have this picture in your head. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to picture these four main parts of your talk along the talk arc. And if we think about reading from left to right, we would, of course, begin with our hook. We would connect with our audience. We would share our tension in our message, and then we would have our closing. This is going to be your map as we go forward, and as you look at how your message specifically is going to be told, you're going to think about all of the things that you want to say and all of the ways you want to say them, and as they fit on this arc. Going forward now, I'm going to show you a model of a talk that I did. I'm going to talk you through what my ideas look like on the talk arc, and I'm also going to create a storyboard. You're going to be doing both of these things, so I want you just to kind of pay attention to my processing. So this is looking outside my office window, and I'm going to try to use this window as kind of a board for showing you how I made my storyboard. So if it doesn't work out perfectly, please forgive me. Okay, so what I did, guys, the first thing I did was I came up with a sticky note for each part of my talk. Okay, so I got out a stack of sticky notes and I said, okay, if I was going to write down all the pieces of my talk, what would they look like? And for each thing that came to mind, I wrote it down on a sticky note. And I'm going to show you that now. Okay, so we know that if we're looking at our talk arc, we're going to start with a hook. So I took a sticky note out and I wrote hook. And I thought about how what I want to do is I want to start, I think, my talk with setting a scene. Okay. I am going to demonstrate this model with a talk that I did about outdoor education, okay? My goal with my talk is to inspire other teachers to take their students outside. My through line for my talk is, given all my experiences as a learner and as a teacher, I believe that taking students outside infuses joy and expands learning opportunities, okay? So those are the things that are guiding my talk. So I decided that I was gonna hook my audience with a story from my childhood after I asked them to do some creative visualization, okay? I wanna bring them into my talk, so I'm gonna ask them to imagine themselves in the woods. Then I'm going to tell that great talk that I have, or that great story that I have. Really, the Place Project was born out of an experience that I had when I was a kid, going to a place called Grant Nature Center once a year in 4th and 5th grade, and we spent like 3 days there doing the most amazing things. We built homes for animals. We played these crazy games in the woods. We were allowed to tromp around in the creek, and it was just, I can't even tell you what it did for my soul. And so that is a story that I'm going to use at the beginning to show that this is a talk only I can give. Remember, we talked about how we want to make this personal. So After drawing my readers in, or not my readers, my audience in with that creative visualization, I want to tell them my story. The next thing I think I would tell within my talk is how I got started, not how I got started teaching, but kind of my experience teaching, and how I started to see a need for expanding the walls of my classroom. And then I'm going to tell the story of what that looked like when I started experimenting in my classroom with taking kids outside. And I'm also going to share, Stanley's here, so pardon the snorting. I'm also going to share about how that experience was kind of lonely. I was doing it within a vacuum, which is going to transition nicely into telling the next part about how I brought that idea to my team to see if they would be on board with joining me in my journey to take kids outside. And then the next thing I want to tell is about how my team experimented. And as I was creating these sticky notes and thinking about what the next part of my talk would be, I realized that this is a great place for me to infuse research. Up until this point, I have been telling personal stories, and it's been a very qualitative sort of explanation. I want to make sure that I have facts to back up what I'm trying to convince people of. So I think this would be a great place for me to show my research about the benefits of taking kids outside, not only because I need to include that in my talk, because research and facts are going to add real value to my talk, but we actually did this research during this time, so it's a timely place to share it. And then I think what I'll end up doing is, after doing that, I want to share one more story about how our experiment with my team members came to an ending, where we gave our kids the opportunity to advocate for learning in all grade levels outside. So that was a project called A Case for Our Place. And that was, I think that's a great story to end my talk with, but I also think it's an inspiring story. So I think that making it or sharing it rather at the end is going to leave my audience in a way that I hope to leave them. And finally, I am going to ask, I don't know if you can see that, ask them a question. I want to end with asking my audience a question, because I want to loop them back in to, internalizing what my message was. So this is what I would call a storyboard, you guys. I have all the parts of my talk that I want to include, and I've given each one of them a sticky note. And the great thing about the sticky note is that sticky notes can be rearranged. So while this may be my first idea about how I want my talk to go, I can play around with this. I can play around with saying to myself, gosh, what if I started with A Case for Our Place? What kind of impact would that have on my story? It's kind of a cool thing to kind of like puzzle with. Would it be more impactful if I share different pieces of research throughout, or should I share them all with my team experiment? This is just kind of a first draft, and the great thing about using these sticky notes is that it's fluid and flexible, and I can play with it and move it around. So that's what I'm going to ask you guys to do, is to think about your talk in terms of little bits and pieces. Give your talk all of its parts. Find a wall, put those sticky notes up, and think about, what does the arc look like? What makes sense? How might your talk change or be more impactful should you move your parts and pieces around? So that's your first step. So after you have had the chance to play around with your storyboarding sticky notes and you've kind of talked through what you think your talk might look like or the way that you think you would best like to share it, I want you to go back to your talk arc. I want you to create something that looks like what I have in front of you right now. I want you to outline your goal. What is your goal of your talk? I want you to write down your through line, because that's going to keep you on track. And as you're, determining what you're going to share in your talk, you're always going to want to come back to that through line. Are you staying true to the course? And then I want you to draw your arc. And I want you to think about those parts. We want to hook, we want to connect, we want to share tension, we want to share a closing. And whatever you decide from your storyboard, I want you to put that down on paper. And then what you will have is all your pre-writing for your drafting. We want to get this down first because in the coming days, I'm going to give you some time to do some research. I mentioned research back when I was working with the sticky notes. As you put your sticky notes together, and even as you're writing or creating your talk arc like I've done here. Oh my gosh, that dog is so distracting. He's making a nest, by the way. I know you can't see this, but I want you to imagine a puppy digging furiously on a pillow. He looks like he has no idea what he's doing, by the way. He's very unskilled. Big sigh. Okay, sorry. Lots of distraction. But I digress. But you guys are used to that, right? Because I do that in class. Okay, so after you've put this down, I want you to be thinking about where in your talk could benefit from research. Where are facts going to be necessary? Where are facts going to be impactful in reaching your goal and focusing on your through line? That's not what we're going to do today, but we are going to do that at the end of the week. So that is something that I do want you to be thinking about as we go forward. So, in summary, you are looking at your talk arc today. You're doing some really good planning. You're identifying your goal, your through line. You're going to get that determined. I know you've drafted that, but hopefully you've chosen one. You're going to get out some sticky notes and you're going to play around with the order of your talk and the important elements. And it's going to make it visual for you too, which is going to be very helpful. And then I want you to actually draw this. I want you to draw out what you are going to do. And then there is a slide that says storyboard in your TED Talk notebook. And when I created that slide initially, I wasn't exactly sure what I would like to see there. I'm going to give you some choice. I would like for you to either take a final sticky note sort of order image of your sticky notes and upload the image, or you can create boxes on that slide that basically mirror your sticky notes. So you would just type them in there. Or you can take a photograph of the model that I've got like in front of you right now, where you've written your goal, your through line, and you've got your talk arc with your kind of your map written out. I just want evidence on that slide that you've done this work. So think about what's the most helpful for you and how you would like to visualize what it is that you are planning to use as the guide for writing your script. Okay, please reach out with any questions. I know that was a lot, but let me know how I can help.